this is maybe one of the biggest deals in some of these people's lives, to have somebody that finally will do this for them. And it is something I don't take lightly.
Welcome to the Learn Skin podcast with me, Dr. Raja.
And me, Dr. Hadar, where we discuss all things skin.
Join us as we delve into the art and science of skin health in today's episode.
Hey, Raja, can you say the thing I told you to tell them?
Of course. We are board-certified dermatologists. This podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is not considered medical advice, nor does it serve as a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. All opinions shared do not express the views of Learn Health, Inc. Let's get to the good stuff.
Hey, Raja, how are you today?
Hey, Hadar, I've just been thinking, gosh, we see so much on media and social media. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a real well-experienced dermatologist talk us through all this?
Boy, there are a lot of dermatologists who are on social media. There are a lot of dermatologists who think they know about social media. But I think when we say social media, when we say dermatology, I think we are all thinking the same person. And we thought for this season, our new season on the podcast, why not start with a pop? What do you say?
I love it. So we've got Dr. Sandra Lee, but I think many of us know her better as Dr. Pimple Popper. She's a board-certified dermatologist, has done such a nice service for a lot of us in dermatology with her ability to just express what we do on social media, television, and in fact, she has a new season that premieres on April 21st on Lifetime for all of you that are interested. But I want to welcome Sandra to our podcast, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us.
That was such a nice introduction. You guys really do this well. You guys have been doing this for a while, I take it. I can tell.
Yes, I think so. It's been a few years, and
We've
on
been
and off
popping
the
a
on
little
and
bit
off.
here and there, not to the same level, but we're poppers light. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It's very
Uh,
nice to be here. I feel very privileged because you guys
well,
are truly, I mean, I'm sure the audience knows this already, but you guys really do wonderful things for dermatology. I am just sort of like this, I feel like I'm this outside bow that people might see, but you guys are the real workers, the real people who change, we all are in some ways, but you guys truly do this on a daily basis, seeing all your patients behind the scenes. So I feel very privileged to be a part of this.
thank you, Sandra. That's very generous. All right. Well, we should start maybe at the beginning because we really want to hear about your career and some tips maybe for dermatologists who are, or other people who are clinicians or in other services who are kind of starting and want to learn more about social media and success. But really, how did it start for you? And I think at least I've heard your story on social media, but how did you even get into dermatology? I don't think I've ever heard that part of your story. And maybe quickly get into how things evolved into social media and the giant success of, I think, billions of downloads. How did
Yeah.
that happen?
Well, you asked me to go way back then. I feel like when I was just a baby, I feel like, well, I mean, I have been around dermatology since I was born, really. My dad is a dermatologist, and when I think he started his residency as I was born, really, 1970, and he was training as a dermatology resident in New York. And so I have memories of eating my cereal, my Lucky Charms in the morning, and I liked to read while I was eating. So I would pull out a textbook and just thumb through the pages. So I got really used to seeing naked bodies and with various growths on them, and it didn't seem to faze me. Or maybe I trained myself to not be fazed by it. My dad loves books, so we had books everywhere. And he has like every single textbook, and I kind of regret not keeping all of them because I'm sure some of them are, I mean, I think they'd be worth something to a lot of dermatologists. So anyway, that's really where it started. I really was exposed to, I knew about dermatology. And then quickly when I was lucky to get into medical school, and I was lucky to, I mean, I knew that dermatology was probably one of the most competitive specialties. And I think that was also part of what made me like want to try to get this specialty, and knowing my father, and he never really was pushing me into one specialty versus another, but he did say that, dermatology is a wonderful specialty and he would indeed choose it again. And we share a lot of similar sort of traits. And he was amazing, an amazing dermatologist. He's still around. He's just retired. And so I think it served me well. And I can't imagine myself in any other specialty.
Well, folks, you are planning into being a dermatologist. You've heard it here. It's Fitzpatrick and Lucky Charm. That
Yes.
combination will
Yeah.
make you a success.
Oh my gosh,
Absolutely.
what a fun field to be in, right? I
Yeah.
mean, just
It
even
is.
before we get into the details, I mean, I feel privileged, and I'm sure that all three of us feel the same way.
And so
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because I think a lot of times in social media and show business, so to speak, I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what you do in front of the camera, right? I think most of
Yeah.
us as dermatologists, we understand what happens in the clinic, but then we assume we know what happens, when you assume a role as the lead character actually in a show. How is that different? And what do you think is the most common misconception that you see, I don't know, in our family of dermatology, doctors in general, or maybe just the general population? What is the most common misconception that people have about what you do?
Well, I'll tell you because it happens to me often in my clinic is that people will say, "Oh, I saw you today for this giant growth. I thought you were going to remove it right now." Well, that's not really what happens. I don't have an extra hour to set aside for this, or even a half an hour or 15 minutes extra, for this. So a lot of times they feel, and we try to prep them beforehand to make sure that they know that, but sometimes they may not hear it or remember it or hope, because sometimes people travel from kind of far to see me too. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception. I think in general, probably dermatologists might wonder, how do I just step in and see these people? I definitely screen them. I try to do as much research before I do something or before I choose to do a case because there's a lot of people that are dependent on it. I don't want to bring somebody out and then say that I can't do something. So obviously I try to screen that as much as I can, but also it's also for the show. The show is trying to make something for entertainment value. And I'm just trying to not hurt anybody and do a good a job as I can. So I'm also trying to balance that I don't want the network or the production company to be upset that they brought somebody out here and filmed a backstory and all this kind of stuff. And then I'm like, oh, sorry, I can't do this. So I try to get as much information. But as you guys know, it's not easy. There's so much that we learn from touching somebody, from feeling, seeing it in real life is a much different thing. Telederm, I don't think that I could do that for every single patient, and it's the
Oh,
same
for
kind of
sure.
thing. I'd have to see them in real life and touch and feel things. So that's probably the biggest misconception. Also, that sometimes when we do something, it doesn't transfer to real life. Like if somebody has 100 lipomas, we're not removing all those in one
Oh
in
my
one
gosh.
sitting. They may see that, or with TV magic, it sort of makes it appear that way. But I don't try to fool anyone. And that's their editing process. They're trying to make things very streamlined and not too complicated. But indeed, a lot of those might be done in a series of 2 or 3 treatments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you bring up this idea of the whole production behind you. And, you have the show people that may sometimes forget that, after all,
Yeah,
this is a medical case and medical practice. But I think also some of the medicine people forget that you actually, part of a show.
right.
That could sometimes bring some, ethical dilemmas,
Yeah,
right? Have you had this? How do you negotiate that? I don't know, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, but
yeah,
have
no,
you have you ever had to negotiate this? I think a lot of us who are doctors always think like, well, I'm not even sure if I want to post this on social media, let alone put it in front of
yeah,
TV. Now we're sure you have lawyers and all that stuff, but just
yeah,
internally, I think we always learn a lot of complicated rules. But my rule is always be like, you know, what is best for the patient. If I can
right.
justify it to my patient, look them in the eye and feel good about it, I can stand in front of a court of law, I can stand in front of anybody. So have you had these issues where you had to negotiate these ethical dilemmas?
Yeah, I think that it also actually crosses over into social media as well alone because I have to stand by anything that I put on my social media. And same with a television show. I feel there's a lot more pressure on a television show because you're not under complete control. On social media, I mean, if you do something on your social media, I think you own it. It's your responsibility. But on a television show, it can be complicated because there are people that want to do things for a different reason than I want to do things. I want to do things to help people, and the patient always comes first in my mind. But they want things for entertainment value primarily. I mean, they want to help people, and I know the production they are very proud to be on the show, part of the show, because I think a lot of the things that they do are these unscripted reality shows. And so those other shows are kind of like the opposite of my show, where they're dealing with craziness and they're trying to prompt craziness. And for us, it's sort of like there's something that's kind of crazy when you first see them on the first see the situation in the get go, and they really feel very proud to be part of something that is helping people instead of making things really crazy. But it's hard. It is hard. And the thing that I have on my side really is that I'm the doctor and that, I'm the one that can ultimately make a decision. And I have to stand up and say no, even if something has been, very expensive or, that's what networks and production companies care about is the cost of things. And I'm the one that has to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do this, or no, we can't do that. And it can be very difficult. I mean, I never imagined my life to be this stressful. I mean, there's wonderful things that have come from it, but it is extremely stressful. But I know that I have this power to say no, and they understand this. And they know that I'm not going to do something just because if I don't feel safe doing it, or comfortable doing it. And sometimes it's difficult because I think sometimes they take lightly what I'm doing, and I don't think I'm that fun on the set because it's stressful, but I mean, I have fun afterwards. But I mean, because I like have to lay, I'm not going to be lackadaisical about something. Oh, this is no big deal. I mean, this is maybe one of the biggest deals in some of these people's lives to
For
have
sure.
somebody that will do this for them, and it is something I don't take lightly. And I enjoy doing the show, but I tell everybody I enjoy it the most when I'm done filming it. And I can, I don't necessarily watch the show afterwards, but I know, like, I feel very lucky that I actually get to see how it changes people's lives. I mean, you guys change people's lives all the time yourselves, but you may not see it so much because they don't necessarily come
Right.
back and talk to you. You don't see how their home life has changed. You don't see all the little things that
Right.
we realize, but it's never really expressed in words. So to be able to see that, I do feel very lucky.
Sandra, you bring up something that I think is so important. First of all, thank you for the sharing kind of
Mhm.
like how the show goes, and also just the notion of being a physician is still there. That's the baseline. And, where I can see that there's going to be some need for making sure it's engaging. And boy, you're really good at that. You are, good at and being engaging and whatnot. But there's probably some level of how you've evolved. So I'm really curious. I kind of wanted to
Yeah.
touch on kind of what you're talking about. How did your relationship with media evolve from the beginning to now? And maybe to make it a bit practical, what is your advice for all of those people that are thinking about media and maybe what it might be for them? And what are some of the ways that, yeah, just take us on the journey of how you evolved. And what is your advice for people that are thinking about getting more and more involved themselves?
So, I mean, media, being involved in it is a very powerful tool. It has bred a whole different occupation, the occupation of influencer. And as a physician, it's very interesting. I mean, when I first started, and it initially started on social media, I mean, it wasn't the show came after that. It was quite interesting. There are certainly instances in the beginning where you're like, wow, I didn't know. It's just such a powerful thing in many ways that I feel very lucky that it happened to me. I talk to young doctors, dermatologists that are influencers, and I feel like sometimes they might feel like I am not understanding exactly what they're doing, or I'm sort of dissuading them. They're very excited about certain things, and I'm kind of trying to temper their excitement. And, I would love them to be successful, and the influence and the power that you sort of have. But like, I feel very lucky that it happened to me 10 years into my career when I felt very comfortable already being a dermatologist and interacting with my patients. I felt very comfortable in the procedures that I did, the surgeries that I did. So I had that experience behind me because you guys know that there's a difference between learning dermatology and actually doing it.
Oh my God. Yes.
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 And I think that if you sort of get that kind of power and influence too soon in your career, which is great. I mean, there's something you can do with that. But also, I may have kind of sat back and really thought about what I could do with that influence. And I felt like later in my career that I was more careful about things in general and protective about certain things. And I'm not saying I did everything, I've done everything right, but I am proud of the way that I've handled myself. And I want to make sure that these young, they realize that just like we didn't. I mean, your life is long. I mean, you're going to be a dermatologist for many years, decades, and you've
Sure.
got to sustain that. And that is the bread and butter. And that is what everything else is built upon. And that is a stable income, stable occupation. And social media and this influence and this sort of media and power is somewhat fleeting. It is not under your control, not as much as your own job, your own occupation as a dermatologist is. And sometimes you can be pulled away from that because of all the stars and that fame and that sort of thing. And it's not all that, it's not all that. And I think it's important to have, I think it's very important to have control over your life more than anything else.
You know what I really love about this is how you said what you learn to be a dermatologist versus the practice of dermatology. I mean, I know I'm paraphrasing there. I think you nailed it right there, Sandra. I mean, I have to say, like, that really resonated with me because there are so many gray area decisions that we make in the clinic all the time.
Hmm.
And sometimes when I watch, and it's not just TV shows or if it's media or whatnot, even if you look at things that are written down or when you look at news reports, they always make it seem a little bit more cut and dry when there's so much nuance in there. So I kind
Yeah.
of appreciate you talking about that. And have you built that into your shows a bit more? How does that work, especially since I think TV and social media tends to want to be engaging? Are you able to bring in this gray area of medicine and show the doctoring and the
Um,
art of medicine more?
It can be difficult because, they only have so much time for a segment. And I get it. I mean, sometimes I will present something and I'll see how they're creating a story behind it. I mean, there's also what they do is quite amazing, how they create a story and they created sort of a different story from all of these that I wouldn't necessarily think of to create that is sort of heartfelt and, it sticks with people and is very captivating to the audience. I do see that, I mean, I don't really watch the episodes, but I even now, like 7 years down the line or whatever it is, I don't remember. I think we started to 2017. I think the things that humble me about it is, even back then, there were different ways we treated things, even from back then. And so it's just very interesting to see how even sometimes I'll hear about an episode and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I treated with that when we now have this, or even I've been one of the things that you learn as a dermatologist being in practice is that not everything, like I try to tell young people, young dermatologists, don't read everything in the textbook and believe that this is it, this is the way things are, because things change. I mean, I have patients, you probably do too, that I have patients that have a lot of skin cancers on their face, like recurring ones, because they had radiation treatment for acne back in the day because they found that that helped. That's just an easy example of how treatment has changed. So I think that it's just interesting how nothing stays the same. So don't take what is in the textbook, just like hidradenitis, right? We thought that it was a disorder of
Oh,
something
totally.
else. And so these things humble you. And even I'm sad to think that I've said something on social media because I thought that was the case 7 years ago or 10 years ago. Things change and always be open to that. I think it's always good to keep your mind open about things and things change.
First of all, you're so genuine, just talking. I mean, sometimes when you see everything on TV, it's hard to know like all the challenges and the struggles. So it's really nice
Yeah,
to hear about that because then it kind of makes, I don't know, Hadar, I don't know how you feel, but I go through these challenges all the time when I'm seeing a patient.
yeah,
I'm like, did I make the right decision on this one? Or, could I have done something differently? That comes up. And to hear you say that, and you've had many years of experience too, is kind of reassuring as a
yeah,
clinician. But also for you to talk about this as someone that also does these really well produced shows also speaks to the fact that it's not easy to do this.
mm-mm,
It's not like you just get behind a camera and do it. I mean, I can see why you would want to have a lot of input on, what you're going to choose to do, what you're not going to choose to do, how you're going to do it. And I totally understand why you might not even watch the show right away afterwards because you're like, thank God we got through that and it like turned
Yeah,
out fine.
but
Right.
really, really. It's not that I don't like watching myself. I'm used to watching myself at this point, but like I don't really want to relive like everything that, because things are stressful, but I
It's
like the
yes.
after. I like it's fun to do all these things, but it's also very interesting to me, and it just might be my personal thing. Like, I mean, of course, it's fun to be recognized and sort of be famous in a way, but also I realized when this all happened that I don't really like that. It's cool and fun, but it's also like a little bit of an invasion of like you can't be. I joke that like you can't have a wedgie out somewhere or something like that. You can't like, you can't feel like you can totally be yourself. Sometimes I'm like kind of taken aback by some people who are just like, that's what they want. And I just don't get it. Like, that's
Yeah.
not really what I think is the best thing about it. Although I do love the little kids. There's a lot of little kids that come to my office to meet me because they love they love the show, or they love pimple popping, or they want to become a doctor, or they want to become a dermatologist. So that is like my favorite part about it. But other than that, I mean, everybody's very nice. It's just like it's just a weird thing, Like I don't really feel like I deserve it, or that I don't know. It's just like a weird kind of I don't think it comes with that many advantages, other than getting out of a parking ticket. I mean, like a being pulled over for speeding. That it does help you with that. Yes.
That's great. Well, I know for sure I'm not getting out of that. And
Sandra, do we have a bobblehead for you yet or no? Not yet.
no,
Oh,
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't. Is that part of this? Are we gonna get a bobblehead at the end? Because that'd be
Let's
cool.
do it.
Okay.
Let's do
Okay.
it. Let's do it. Hey, we don't own the rights, but we're happy to to
Yeah.
promote it. You mentioned the entertainment value, and Raja, I don't know if you are aware, but according to Wikipedia, you are talking to the 2020 winner of the Guilty Pleasure Show
Oh
at
yeah.
this
I did
award,
not know that.
and that brings an issue because we talked about the entertainment value. We talked about your amazing production team really digging into the life of the patient, bringing out stories that we as clinicians sometimes miss, which I think is such
Hmm.
an important dimension of what you do because it does allow even doctors who maybe do excisions and procedures every day, like you said, go and see what happens in the house afterwards. Really fascinating. But I have to ask you because it does speak to something that you tapped on really, really early. And for those of you who've been hiding under a rock, or that one person who hasn't seen these videos that Sandra puts out early on, please come and see me in my office after. But this fascinates me, right? The
Yeah.
idea that there are a lot of TV shows, right, that are documentaries, right? We'll see a documentary on open heart surgery. Gosh, what, people now using AI to move limbs, telepathically almost. It's magic. We see all these shows, right? And there's, God knows, there are narrative TV shows on medicine forever. Yet there's something about that you hit on that is just unexplainable. And I don't know this psychological phenomena of watching
Hmm.
pimples pop, right? Of watching the extraction. And I don't know about you, but as a dermatologist, I can't have one Oreo and I can't do one extraction. It's addictive, and we all get satisfaction out of watching
I mean,
this,
I get
even,
satisfaction watching them.
right?
I got to be honest, right? And I'm like, oh, what's
Well,
the
Right?
I'm gonna tell you something because
This is an
I'm a born
amazing
again. I'm a
phenomenon.
born again popaholic. I did not get satisfaction from it in the
alcoholic? I
beginning.
love it.
I call myself a born again because I now get it.
So
I didn't know why it was so interesting to people, but then when I first posted that video, I was like, oh my gosh, people like this. This is
how
crazy.
do you explain it? I mean, is there a psychological phenomena about this? Because it is
Yeah,
really fascinating because people will watch, like I said, they watch, a heart transplant, they watch it once, but yours, they get viewed again
yeah.
and again by the same viewers, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's why we were talking about. I mean, like, I think we have over 6 billion views now on YouTube, and we hit 5 billion quite a while ago. And it's crazy the number of views. Like, people compile them into files, like groups. They call them bedtime stories because they'll watch
Oh,
the
wow.
same one over again especially after a hectic day. Like, I'm surprised, Raj, you're not stepping up and, playing this after a stressful day at work, No. But I mean, I hear a lot of nurses like actually firemen, cops, and things. I think there's multiple reasons, but I think one of them in those kinds of cases, that they deal with these things probably under very stressful circumstances, or they see the skin, or it is multiple different things. But I think one of them is this sort of release where you're taking something that's sort of not supposed to be there and making it go away in sort of a painless, comfortable way. And you can watch it remotely and feel like everything's kind of back into its right place. I
Right.
think there are
It's very
ways that,
satisfying. I hear people say
yeah,
that a lot.
yes,
It's so
yes,
satisfying,
it
right?
puts them to sleep. It relaxes them, which is crazy, right? That is crazy to me to think that, but you can see that kind of pull. I think there are people that liken it to like riding a roller coaster or watching a scary movie, something that
Right.
creates this sort of tension and then there's a resolution of it. I think there was a show that Gwyneth Paltrow was in, I think her husband produced, and they had me in one of the opening scenes, and he said it was like watching Dr. Phil was like a happy ending at the end, because it's sort of like
Right.
this ending that is sort of a
Unbelievable.
resolution. And people have also likened it to, primates, like where we pick at each other. And so all
Right.
these sorts of things I think are reasons that people watch it. And I think for people to watch it too in a way that, they feel like the patient is safe and that they're not in any pain or any discomfort. I mean, I cringe when I see the ones where somebody's at a beach and they're just squeezing at an abscess and there's paper towels and no gloves, and then there's dogs barking and beer cans, in the corner. I can't handle that kind of thing. So I just feel like in a clean sort of environment that's calm is also something that people kind of were gravitating towards. So, but it was really pretty much kind of a shock to me that people were so entranced with it. And I just saw that was happening. I just would, like I tell everybody, I would put another blackhead log on the fire every day. I just go,
Right.
let me see, was this going to build it up to a bigger bonfire?
Yeah. And I think to those of us listening out there, and, not to overanalyze this, but for me, it always stressed that this success that you have is built on something. You hit on something that somebody else didn't, right?
Yeah.
And that is important. So you may want to be an influencer and media and all that, but if you really want to separate yourself in everything that you do, there has to be merit. There has to be skill. You mentioned working really hard as a dermatologist for many years before this even started, and then really finding something new and innovative about what you do. And you tapped into that human need to see things come into order, as you said. Very, very satisfying. So, I think definitely a lot of cool lessons here. Hey, Sandra, what's next for you for the show? What's happening? We know that the new
Um,
season is coming April 21st on Lifetime.
yes.
Dr. Pimple Popper breaking out. So everybody look out for that. We know you have a skincare line, right? That's Sandra
SLMD
Lee.
skincare. Yes.
Yeah.
SLMD skincare. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, on
And
that
it's at
website.
it's at Sprouts now as well, so people can get it at Sprouts. And yeah, but it's also at slmdskincare.com. And that kind of really came from my sort of what can I do with this sort of influence or this sort of, this weird power that I had at that, when this all started.
You know what's cool about it being at Sprouts? I love this is that it's so easily accessible for people. And I have to say, every place that I travel, I
Yeah.
always order a few things from Sprouts. I didn't realize I could probably get your skincare line as part of it
Yeah.
too. So.
Yeah, but it's also, the things that I think all we dermatologists, it was really trying to make dermatology accessible to anybody. There's a lot of people who can't see a dermatologist and they're concerned about their skin and they have acne. And that was really where it started because it was an easy transition from, popping pimples per se. And I think that was part of what we were trying to do is just because people were asking questions of what they could use or what they should use, and we're just trying to provide products for them until they can see a dermatologist or if they cannot see a dermatologist.
So what's next for you?
Well, I'm in the midst of taping right now. We are almost finished with 20 episodes, which is three
Wow.
patients an episode. Yes, that's crazy. And I think we're getting revved up we're halfway through. So I think we're going to be doing another amount of episodes after this. So we'll see. So right in the middle of it. I'm in the middle of the storm. And we're about to, though, get ready for our premiere, which is on April 21st, and that's going to be exciting. We're actually going to have a little viewing party like the week or two beforehand at Man's Chinese Theater, which is really cool. So we
Wow.
got, yeah, so we got a that for press and things like that. So that's going to be really special. And
Amazing.
so yeah, so that'll be fun. Getting close to, I have another taping episode, in like a week or two where we see some patients and things. So I'm just in the middle of it. Well, you guys might be the same way, but I definitely live like day by day. I like look at my calendar a couple days ahead and realize
Oh,
what's going on in the
100%.
next few days.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so that's just
Yeah.
that's just how I have to
Yeah.
live. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Sandra, I'm honestly so happy that you find the time to come and join us here
Oh,
in our little neck of the woods. I know that absolutely super busy. I mean, running a practice is just a full-time job
yeah.
and a half, and then being lead in a successful TV show on top of it and everything that you do. So, and I know that you are a very sought after speaker. Every meeting I go to, I seem to see you just popping in front of me, no pun intended. And so it's really incredible, and we really appreciate you joining us here, and really appreciate your ability to stay humble, to stay ethical in the midst of all these pressures that most of us will probably never have to deal with. So appreciate everything you do for our field, and of course for your patients, which are really
Yeah.
the center of it all. So
Thank
folks, you
you.
heard it here. The new season for Dr. Pimple Popper, Breaking Out, is going to be April 21st on Lifetime. So catch it there and catch this podcast. And thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in to the Learn Skin podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found valuable insights to take away with you.
And before you go, we'd love to ask for your support in helping us reach even more listeners just like you. Leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform not only helps us improve, but it also boosts our visibility and helps others discover our show.
So, if you found this episode helpful, inspiring, or thought-provoking, please take a moment to leave a review and share your thoughts. Your feedback means the world to us, and it truly helps us grow.
Thank you again for being a part of this journey with us. And until next time, stay curious.